Hey y'all, so I've done this a couple times before where I have pulled gold off old electronics and tried to purify it and melt it down. And I've done about three small batches. My first batch, complete disaster, did not work at all. My second two were poor, to say the least, but not complete failures. And so I kind of wanted to put a little video together to maybe help some other people see what not to do, maybe realize something they're doing wrong. More than likely, they'll realize something I'm doing wrong, but I'm okay with that because this is just a fun thing to do. So, getting straight into it. So, the way I've done it in the past, I've taken these electronics like boards of various types, fingers, etc., and I put them in muriatic acid and hydrogen peroxide and dissolved out all the non-gold metals, and then taken that residual gold, or not residual, but the gold that was left over, and then run it through, after lots of filtering, etc., run it through muriatic acid and bleach to dissolve it, and then sodium metabisulfate to pull it out of solution, and then melt it with a torch. So basically, the gist of the issues I had, my first batch, I put way too much bleach in. When they say do it drop by drop, they literally mean do it drop by drop. I don't know how I screwed that up, didn't catch that, but I screwed that up. So my first one, I had a lot of white precipitate in it when I tried putting the SMB in. And it was a disaster. I did everything I could to try to recover it. It was probably recoverable by someone who actually knows what they're doing, but I'm not, so I couldn't recover it. I eventually disposed of it and gave up on that batch. And then my next two batches, basically, I didn't make that mistake again, but the step where you do bleach and muriatic acid, you dissolve the gold in the solution becomes like a goldish yellow tint. And then, in theory, when you put the SMB in to pull the gold out of solution, the solution will like clear up to relatively clear, or at least not yellow, maybe like a little brown or something, but not yellow. And I never could get to that point. I will link a video to Nile Red, and he did this. He's a much smarter man than I am. He did a much better job than I did, and he has you can really see in his step where he put SMB in, and it seems like it almost immediately just fell out of solution, and I believe the solution became pretty clear with, a little turbidity in it, but not yellow anymore. Also, he can explain the science behind what's going on way better than I could ever hope to. So I highly recommend you check that out. That was one of the first videos I really saw where I really wanted to do this, and I thought, okay, that's doable. But yeah, so I feel like I didn't have stannous chloride test. I know. So I can't say I know that there was gold in it, but the solution was still pretty yellow. I'm 99% sure there was still probably a good bit of gold in that solution. I did get some precipitate to drop out, and I did melt it down, and I did have little pieces of gold, not even a gram of gold, very, very little gold, but it did, technically it did work to some degree. So this time I'm doing it again, and basically I think the issue I had last time was a lot of debris and contaminants in the solution that went through the muriatic acid and bleach that somehow corrupted the solution and didn't allow the reaction to work properly. So first, let's start with what we're working with. So a lot of times when you see people do this, they'll use fingers. If you don't know what fingers are, they're little protrusions on a PCB board that are connections. If you've ever seen a video game cartridge like N64 or Nintendo NES, whatever, those little connectors that you blow into, those are plated with gold, and those are the type of things that people generally use when they're doing this. Usually another big place you'll see them is RAM sticks, parts of computers, etc. The last time I did it, I did have some fingers, but this time I don't think I have any. Most of what I'm working with is cell phone boards like this one. Yeah, this is cell phone. And GPS boards. And then there's a few various other electronic boards with gold on them that I'm throwing in there. Now, one issue with this is that to the best of my understanding, the gold here is really, really thin. So where the gold on a finger might be a little thicker, there's basically just literally more gold there. This is a very, very thin layer of plated gold, probably more akin to gold leaf. And so the yield won't be that high. With fingers and other electronics, depending on the way they were manufactured, what their intended use was, etc., can determine how thick or thin the gold is. But what I have is basically a lot of cell phones and a bunch of Garmin GPSs. And this is what we're working with. So I don't expect, I'm not going to be pulling out, an ounce of gold or anything crazy like that. I wish. If I pull out an ounce of gold, I've screwed something up pretty bad. But basically, when you do the first step, the muriatic acid, hydrogen peroxide, all this gold that you see here will come off, and there'll be very small gold flakes. So, these are gold contacts. This gold outline, I'm sure someone could explain exactly why it's there and what its purpose is. I don't really know. I just know gold's a good conductor. Here's some more gold contacts right there. Also, there's a lot of these plug thingies. Let me see if I can get a good shot of that. You can kind of see there's gold right there. Those are little metal prongs, and they're gold plated. This is actually an LG board from a cell phone, and this is actually unique for me. I've only seen this a couple other times where this whole sheet is plated gold. It may not show it well on the camera. The camera kind of makes it look a little coppery, but looking at it in real life, I can tell you that is a gold brass color, and because of where I'm finding it, it's almost certainly gold. I've got a lot of, this is actually a fire stick. But you have a lot of gold plating around the screws and on all the button contacts. Let's pick you up. And then this is just a whole bowl. Most of this is GPSs right now with some cell phones in there. And I'm going through, a bunch of cell phones to get that. And the other thing I have a lot of is these are boards from flat screen TVs. So you can see there's gold plating. There, that's a better shot. There's gold plating all along these. Those are much more like fingers, but to the best of my understanding, they are not fingers. They are still a very thin coat of gold. So like I said before, the issue I had was, I think, the issue I had was all the debris. So once you do the first step and you dissolve basically most of the metal that's not gold, you get these boards, and basically what I did was I went through these boards, and there's a few little scraps of gold plate in these places, and I would just literally mechanically scrub them off and clean them, make sure all the gold was gone, and then toss the boards. And what I was left with, I wish I had pictures of, was a solution that had a lot of very thin gold flakes. Think like if you've ever seen one of those novelty vials of gold from like a gold mining attraction or something to that effect. There's very thin flakes of gold. It's kind of like that. So the issue though is it's a lot more than just that. Plastic connectors like this, there are some plastics that seem to kind of dissolve in the solution and kind of become a sludge with little bits everywhere. This green on the boards is actually, to the best of my understanding, some sort of film or sticker. And when it sits in solution long enough, some of this will come off. It'll flake off almost like fish food flakes. And it'll be like this light green flake, and it gets everywhere. And it's very difficult to separate that stuff out. The only way I could find to really separate a lot of that stuff out, I mean, obviously I did a lot of filtering, but a lot of it was taking a pair of tweezers and physically removing junk. Another thing I found a lot of was copper windings. Now, my understanding is that the muriatic acid and hydrogen peroxide should dissolve copper, but I think with these copper windings, they had insulated coatings on them that protected the copper from the solution, is the best guess I have. So I had a lot of that in there, and, you know, I really wish I had video. I mean, I really sat there and tried to pick through all that stuff the best I could, but I just couldn't get everything out. Now, like, so the last batch I did the best I could to pick as much of it out as possible, but, you know, at a certain point, it's just so small that the pieces that you're picking out that it just gets not very plausible to do. So I think that was the issue. I hope that was the issue that was causing my low yield. So this time what I'm going to do is I'm really going to clean these boards off well. So right now I'm just pulling the boards out of the devices they're in. So you can see, like, I did pull that chip off. And like, this was a headphone jack I pulled off. There's a little gold plating on those prongs, so I did leave those. But like, I didn't take the sticker off. There's other things like that. I'm basically piling these in the bowl you saw, and then I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna really scrub these. I tried this out and it seemed to work. Like, all these little what I believe are capacitors, I took like a metal pick that has square edges, and I basically took it and just scraped the board, and it really got a lot of those off. You know, just tediously pulling these chips off. These are probably the harder ones because it's very low profile, so it's hard to get pliers on. But you can't really get under it very easily, if at all, definitely without breaking the board, which I'm okay with. The board doesn't need to be intact, but the less debris available to be in solution, the better, as far as I'm concerned. So basically, I'm going to come back to the video on my next step and show you me kind of cleaning the boards real good, taking all the stickers off, etc., and, you know, doing the best to cut out the excess junk that doesn't have gold on it. And I'm hoping this time it will go a lot better. Just stay tuned and we will see how it goes. Hopefully, at the very least, you'll learn some things not to do, some things to do, probably mostly things not to do. But hey, this is just for fun, right? Also, one last thing. So I did just happen to be cleaning this. This is the batch I did, the third batch I did, which is the only one I actually got gold melted back out of. You can see a few little gold specks in there. Basically, there is, when I melted those down, I burnt them in a crucible, and it had a lot of, qu'est-ce que c'est, filter paper in there, and that's that black stuff you're seeing is the leftover carbon from the filter paper, and it's really caked on those pieces of gold. So I'm putting it through the sonic cleaner, and it's really actually helped a lot to pull that off. So I'm hoping I can kind of get it down to mostly just the gold. You know, we're talking less than a gram of gold, but hey, gold's gold. So I will come back to y'all in a little bit with the next step.